Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome back. Yes, we did the Chazaka last week, and now we have a full month under our belt. Baruch Hashem. Thank you guys for participating. Thank you for everybody on the Zoom for participating. We are in the middle of a very deep mimer, located. We're going to start on page 12 of Torah Or. The mimer is called Lehavin, Inyan, Bereishis, to understand the concept of brachas, of blessing. And we'll just do a quick summary of what we went over last week. And we're going to attempt to try and complete it today. So we have a lot to do with, I don't know how much time. But without further ado. So we first discussed the idea of the institution of blessings, why the Rabbanan placed it in our tradition, as in the first Beis HaMikdash did not have the concept of brachas, and we said it was because of a decrease in emunah, and in order to be able to see Hashem more palpably in our life, we were given the opportunity to connect the theory into action, the subconscious into the conscious. And we went into a very deep, mystical interpretation of what it means to say a bracha, Baruch Ata, the transcendent, subliminal energy becomes Melech HaOlam, imminent and connected to us. And we said this is specifically privy to the Jewish people in the sense that we are neshamas in a physical body, which implies that we are deeply, deeply woven to the essence of Hashem, as opposed to malachim that have to metaphorically flap their wings, which is the idea of having some type of distance and dissonance between them, whereas the Jewish soul does not have that at all. And the expression of that connectivity is through the bracha. If my summary is not on target enough, I really do advise everybody and everybody learning on the Zoom to see the mimer in English. It was posted last week, chassidusnow.com. The mimers, and it has summaries in the middle. But for the sake of brevity and time, I'm just going to refer to last week's class, and we'll do just one more piece. We then discussed the idea of the difference between a long bracha and a short bracha. We said in halacha there's an idea of the matbeya katzar and the matbeya aruch, which basically means matbeya is like a mint or a form or a mold of how to create a currency, and that term is used to teach us that there are different styles of blessings. So that was a very legalistic dimension of Torah, and we went into the depth of it, and we said that each one, matbeya katzar, matbeya aruch, depending on if you open the blessing and don't seal it, or you have the opening of the bracha and you do seal it with a subsequent blessing, is the idea of almadis kasya and almadis galia, two dimensions, two frames of reality. One is the exposed world and one is the clandestine world. One is a world that is all about division and separation, and therefore we need to cling on and hold on to something. And one is an intimate world, a world of unification. And therefore in that world we need less to hold on to because we are less separated. So therefore these blessings are unique in the sense that one either creates a connection to that unification or one creates a manifestation of that unification. And we spoke about the idea of chasima, right? The idea of the sealing, the signature of the bracha. And we said that the matbeya aruch is a blessing that has an opening, Baruch Atah Hashem, and a closing, Baruch Atah Hashem. And we said that style or that nature of the nature of that type of bracha implies that there is more susceptibility, more vulnerability to the demonic extraneous forces to try and suckle and nurse from a side of holiness. And because of that, we don't want anybody to read our letter to Hashem. It's a private letter. We're Hashem's secret admirer, and the way we express that is by saying brachas, and therefore it requires a conclusion in that sense, the chasima. Versus one that doesn't have a chasima, that's called the matbeya katzar, and we're basically saying because we're so close to Hashem, there's the ktsira, the conciseness of the bracha is because we're so close. We ended off last class by saying this is really reflected in our davening, the difference between the build-up of Psukei de Zimra, Birchas Kriya Shema Shema, versus Shemona Esrei. That all of that is a singing, and we're more elaborate and more, so to speak, verbose Whereas in Shemona Esrei, it's much more concise and in quiet. And that represents a tremendous, deep sense of unification and intimacy, reflecting the idea of Ne'ilas Yom Kippur. He says that's the idea of, that's what we say, we use the terminology chasima because we have transcended the name of Hashem, Yud Kei Vav Kei, which represents a representation, a manifestation. We're now in the essence. Okay, so again, if this was too concise, please refer to last week for a more elaborate discussion. L'chaim, l'chaim. Okay, so we're holding in the middle of page 12, the beginning of the paragraph starting with ve'ata. Now, I should warn everybody, if last week was deep, this is put on your seatbelts and get ready for I don't want to say bumpy ride, but definitely a very, very powerful ride. So it's going to take a little bit of time to unpackage. So bear with me in that regard. But may Hashem bless us to have some clarity. I'm going to ask for, if I can trouble you, just for the English sitter right there on the top. Thank you. Perfect. Oh, she got it. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. Says the Holy Alter Rebbe, Parshas Bereishis, Lehavin Inyan Bereishis, class 2. Ve'ata navei libir Inyan beis brachas rishon shel nisuim. With this deep introduction of the difference between the various matbeot, the various mintings of blessings, and the various styles of blessings, each representing a subconscious, concealed world versus a revealed and exposed world. With that, we'll understand the first two blessings of marriage. Shehem yoitzer ha'adam asher yotzer es adam b'tzalmai. Now, not trying to correct anything here, but it is not the first two. It's the first two that discuss Adam and Chava. Okay? So the first two really... Oh no, maybe I'm wrong. No, it is the first two, I'm sorry. No. It's the two... It starts off Shahakol bar lichvoidei, that blessed are you Hashem, who has created all things in his glory. And then you have our bracha. Baruch atah, I'm going to test you guys. Baruch atah Hashem le'kinu b'chalim yoitzer Adam. Is that matbeach katzer or matbeach aruch? Remember, does it have a sealing? Does it have a signature? Or does it not have a signature? No signature. So it's matbeach katzar. That means that there's more intimacy, there's more unification there. Whereas the third one, Baruch atah Hashem le'kinu b'chalim, I'll translate in a second. Asher yotzer es ha'adam b'tzalmai b'tzelem d'mus tavnisoi v'hiskin lo mimenu binyan adei ad. Baruch atah Hashem yotzer ha'adam. What does that sound like? We had a Baruch opening and a Baruch closing. Okay? So now he's going to adapt all of the previous discussion, our last class, to the actual Sheva Brachas of a husband and wife. Now, what's the significance of this? We spoke about last class that this mimer was said at a wedding, I believe in the year 1803. And the significance as well is the Parshas Bereishis is really the first wedding of all of existence between Adam and Chava, which occurred on the sixth day of creation, which we're celebrating in Parshas Bereishis. So perfect timing. So the translation of these two blessings that we're going to explore are: Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, creator of man. Yoitzer ha'adam. Okay, now is that the creator of mankind or the creator of a specific man named Adam Arishon? Okay, we'll get to that. Then you have, blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who created man in his image. Okay, Asher yotzer es Adam tzalmoi, and then we're going to repeat, Betzelem d'mus tavnisoi, right? He created a man in his image, in the image of his likeness. He fashioned his form and prepared for him and his own self an everlasting edifice. Blessed are you, Lord, creator of man. Okay? So now, blessing number 2 and blessing number 3 both end off Yoitzer Adam, right? That's how we conclude. So the beginning is just different. And obviously the third of the Sheva Brachas is much more elaborate. Okay? So now, says the Alter Rebbe, Harishoina poiseches bebaruch ve'ena choisemes. The first blessing opens with the terminology Baruch, but does not conclude. We don't have the chasima there. Ve'ashnia poiseches bebaruch ve'choisemes bebaruch. And the second blessing opens up with Baruch and concludes and is sealed with Baruch. So it already implies that in the Sheva Brachas of the connection between husband and wife, that these are the blessings that are, what is a bracha, we said last week, is the manifestation of the true truth that is occurring in the soul. So this is we believe, we hope, that these two are really fragments of one soul, feminine energy and masculine energy placed in two different bodies. And there's a unification there. Now the question is, how do we synthesize the two together? We have to have a combination of some subconscious, matbeya katzar, and conscious, matbeya arich. Or, in fancier, more Kabbalistic terminology, alma diskasya, fusing together with alma diskalia. Okay? As we're going to unpackage now. Inyan, the idea is, so again, really the Alter is asking a question without asking the question. Basically, isn't this redundant? Right? You just basically told me the same exact bracha. Inyan, the idea is, Kihine b'gemara ksubis ches aleph ayin sham amru shebeis yitziras halalu keneged shtei yitziras shahaya ba'adam harishin. We're gonna learn the Gemara now, yeah, but I'll just quote it. It says in the Gemara in Ksubis Daf Ches that these yitziros, these two yitziros, are corresponding to two forms, two moldings that occurred within Adam Harishin, which means Tchila Nivra Adam Levadai B'doi Partsufim. First, Hashem created man, meaning Adam Harishin, alone. Now Levadai also has the idea of Badai Partsufin. Badai Partsufin is, in Aramaic, is two forms, two images. Okay? Which means to say, I forgot there's a scientific term, Siamese maybe? That Adam and Chava were created, Siamese or homogeneous, basically two, in one body, but two bodies within one. And then Hashem removed Chava from that partsuf, from that image, from that form. Okay? So I want to learn the Gemara a little bit, because I think it's just a good background. So the Gemara says like this. Tanu Rabbanan, our rabbis taught. I'm going to read it in English for the sake of brevity. We recite Sheva Brachas in the presence of 10 people, all 7 days of rejoicing. Amar Rabbi Yehuda said, Vehu shabau panim chadashos. This is only when you have new faces coming to the meal. What text does one recite? So now the Gemara is teaching us, and this is how we codify it in Shulchan Aruch, and that's why we read it the way we do in our sidders. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, shakol bara lichvoide, v'yotzar adam, asher yotzar es adam b'tzalmai, v'hiskin v'tzelem b'dmus tavnitz, v'hiskin lo mimenu b'binyan ad yad. So basically he says all the Sheva Brachas, okay, and the last bracha, asher bar rasasam yisibcha, chasam v'chala, gila rina, right? The Gemara says the whole thing, kol sasim, kol simcha, kol chasim, kol kala, etc. Now, the Gemara disputes in practice how you actually say these brachas. So you have a person named Levi. Levi visited the home of Rabbi Yehuda Anasi, during the wedding of Rebbe's son Rab Shimon. So Levi recited 5 brachas. Okay? He recites 5 brachas. That is, he said all the blessings listed above except for the second one, Yotzara Adam. Okay? Which is who fashions the man. Okay? Now, Rab Asi visited the home of Rab Ashi during the wedding of his son Mar, and he recited 6 blessings. What were his 6 blessings? He says here, that is, he included the blessing who fashions the man. Presumably both Levi and Rab Asi recited the blessing Beri Pri Hagafen as well, and that would include the Sheva Brachas. Now, what is the argument here? Why are we have 7 brachas, including Beri Pri Hagafen. Why is one negating 1 and one is negating 2? Let us say that Levi and Rab Asi disagree about the following matter. That one master, Levi, holds that there was only one fashioning of man. Okay? I'm going to read the footnote here. Adam and Chava were created as a double figure in a single act of creation. Okay? So meaning to say, unlike who? Unlike what? I'll read it again. Adam and Chava were created as a double figure in a single act of creation. That means that other creatures and other creations were not created in a single act. Like who? Anybody take a guess? Animals are not one being. It's meaning to say the origin of humanity, of human beings, is one entity that is both male and female. I'm sure there's a more sophisticated term, but not only Siamese. Whereas animals had to be created, a male dog and a female dog. a male giraffe and a female giraffe. That's how it was. There's a zachar and a nekeva. But human beings didn't merit this concept of zachar and nekeva. Only afterwards. So now our question becomes why? Meaning to say, if we inevitably were going to be separated, men and women, zachar and nekeva, just create us like the animals were, in the sense that there is already a separate gender for each. Whereas, he says, Adam and Chava were created as a double figure in a single act of creation. And therefore, you only say yoitzer once. Okay? That one master Levi holds that there was only one fashioning of man. Therefore, it is unnecessary to have two separate blessings discussing man's formation. Who fashions the man and who fashioned the man in his image. We don't want that. And the other master, this is Rab Asi, holds that there were two fashionings of man and each blessing corresponds to one of those acts of creation. What were the two fashionings? One is Adam and Chava created in one singular entity, and then another fashioning that there was a nisira, there was a removal of Chava's being from Adam's, and therefore we bless the Chassid and Kala by Sheva Brachas with those two images, that you should be in the image of man, who fashioned the man in his image, and who fashions man, representing the two states of creation. So now, the Gemara says, no, that's not necessarily true. For it's possible that everyone agrees that there was only one fashioning of man, and their dispute revolves around a different point. What is that? Initially, God planned to create a male person and a female person at the same time. When he came to the actual act of creation, however, he created only one double figure. Okay? That means, in his mind, in Hashem's mind, he desired that there should be two. There should be two. In the planning. I'll read it again. One master. Initially, God planned to create a male person and a female person at the same time. When he came to the actual act of creation, however, he created only one double figure. Whereas the other master of Asi holds that we follow the plan of God, which was to make a separate male and female, each in a separate act of creation. There were two planned fashionings of man, and hence two blessings are appropriate. So one holds that we go by what? Do we go by the thought, or do we go by the action? So one says we go by the action, and in action, were we created two or were we created as one? One. So therefore you only need one bracha of Yetzirah. Whereas the other one says, but that's not what Hashem really wanted. Yes, in actuality Hashem made us one, but he really wanted us as two. And therefore, that creates the second of the Sheva Brachas, Yoitzer Adam. Okay? Whereas the other master Levi holds that we follow God's action, which created a single entity containing both male and female. Thus, there was only one fashioning of man, and one blessing is appropriate. And that's the machlokes. So therefore, when they go to their friends' houses and they're given the kibud, the honor of blessing their children, so they're not trying to diss them, right? They're not trying to offend them. They're holding in accordance with their opinion, a very, very interesting philosophical opinion. This explanation of the dispute follows Rabbi Yehuda's view of creation of man. For Rabbi Yehuda notes a contradiction. It is written, God created the man in his image, describing man's creation in the singular, indicating that a single male and female entity was created. But then it says, Zachar unekeva bera'am. He created them male and female, describing man's creation in the plural, indicating that both a male entity and a female entity were created. How is that possible? How do we reconcile the two? Again, he's now bringing, Rabbi Yehuda is bringing proofs from the Chumash of this idea of the singular act. Okay? So you have two psukim. One, God created the man in his image, and then it says he created them male and female. So he says, originally the plan was that two separate human beings would be created, i.e. a male and a female, which would imply that what? That Hashem desired what? Two or one? Two. But in the end, only one was created, a male and female combination. Okay? Let's do one more piece here. Rav Ashi visited the home of Rav Kahana for a wedding. On the first day, Rav Ashi recited all Sheva Brachas. From then on, it depended. If there were new faces, he recited all of them. But if not, it was a mere extension of the previous joy. So he recited only the formula added at the beginning of Birchas Hamazon, in whose abode is the joy. Okay, so this is a whole other topic. Okay? So now, One second. Let's just read the footnote here. The Gemara speaks anthropomorphically. God, to whom past and future are the same, does not change at all. Nor do his plans ever need to be revised to accommodate unfolding events. Right? So you can ask the question, what if Hashem wants something, why doesn't he just do it? Right? We just said, because he wanted it, but didn't do it in action, but therefore he showed us what his mind was, that eventually I want this homogeneous creature, male and female entity, to eventually become separated. So just separate them. Rather, God intended the husband-wife relationship to be unique in creation. And this is where we get it. The difference between animals and humans is that we were created as in oneness. And the mission in life is to individuate, and this is what this is going to be the content of our mimer. The mission in our life is to individuate and finally come back to harmony. You can't have harmony, true harmony, if you were created in duality. So therefore, there's no such thing as marriage amongst animals. There's mating amongst animals, but no marriage amongst animals. Marriage is the synthesis of each other's personality that male and female can now digest and absorb each other's energy and now lift each other up to this whole new thing called marriage. So marriage is not a guy and a girl got married. Marriage is that you've become a totally different entity. You've revealed that which is concealed and you've concealed that which is revealed. Whereas in animals, the fact that they were created in the sense of duality, meaning to say it required two actions to create two separate genders, that's in essence lacking a certain connectivity. Rather, God intended the husband and wife relationship to be unique in creation. Two separate beings who are to experience a oneness on many levels of existence. In order to accomplish this, God created man on two planes. Physically, man and women were created as one. Okay? Now this is very deep. Physically, I'm going to say it again for myself. Physically, man and woman were created as one. Right? That's the one Yetzirah. But in Olam HaMachshava, in thought, God planned for them to become separate. Okay? Thus, at the moment of his creation, man was both one with his wife and separate from her. What does that mean? He was one with his wife, begashmias, physically, but he was separate from her where? Beruchnias, mentally and emotionally. Why? Because that's what Hashem desired. So even though in the manifest, tangible world, you only see one entity, this homogeneous creature of male and female, nevertheless, on a subconscious level, on an emotional and mental and spiritual level, there's two. Thus, at the moment of his creation, man was both one with his wife and separate from her. This set the tone for the ongoing husband and wife relationship which human beings alone are capable of experiencing. This is a chiddush of the Rashba, if anyone who wants to know the commentary. We've explained the Gemara's second explanation of the dispute between Levi and Rab Asi according to Rashi here. It should be noted, however, the Gemara in Bereishis and in Eruvin presents the view that man was created as a double figure, as an alternative to the view that God planned to create him as two, but actually created him as one. For this and other reasons, see Tosfos there. Okay. And again, from my very short amount of learning, I understand that the Christian Bible translates the word tzela as rib. So we learned the idea of rib, but I don't believe we believe in that. I think the Gemara says that from this being, this human being, which contained male and female in it, her extraction was from the tail. There was some type of tail that was extending from this being, and that's where Chava's energy was created from, or Chava's being was created from. And there's also an opinion that says from the side. It doesn't specify a rib per se. Again, if I'm wrong on this, you can. But that's what I understand, because they translate tzela as rib, but it can also mean side, not rib necessarily. Okay, so this is the Gemara. If the Gemara was tough, let's get ready for the mimer. Okay, but I feel like it's important. By the way, I'm not the Alter Rebbe says ksubes ches daf aleph ayin sham. Ayin sham means I'm not putting it here in the mimer, but let's learn it. So we learned it. So now we have Levi and Rab Asi, right? Differing opinions, and again to elaborate. And now we understand why one says both Yotzera Adam both blessings. I'm going to keep it here for my, Yoitzer Adam is the first bracha, and then Asher Yoter As Adam Tzalmai Baruch Hashem Yoitzer Adam, the second bracha, right? So according to the one that says that there was only one act of creation of this homogeneous being, so you only say one Yoitzer Adam. You only need one. But according to the one that says, yes, there was only one act of creation to create this homogeneous being, but the intention was that there eventually should be two, so you should say both Yetzirah. So Yoitzer Adam and Yoitzer Adam. Okay? I think it's important in general that we have to understand Chassidus is obviously not just coming as an explanation or an elaboration, but is the depth and essence of all Torah, as the Rebbe elaborates in the treatise on the essence of Chassidus. So, being that that's the case, we also have to understand, and maybe we'll discuss this a little bit in the Maimer, that Torah has a slow emergence in history. So yes, at Har Sinai, Torah was manifest and revealed. But as we're going to even discuss in the Maimer, that it wasn't necessarily. Moshe Rabbeinu is questioning, why are you giving me the Torah? You have another person named Rabbi Akiva who's elaborating and discussing things that even Moshe Rabbeinu didn't consciously know. Okay, and then we discussed a few times in the past, historically speaking, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi compiles the Mishnah, but there's no Gemara yet. Then there's a compilation of the Gemara, but there's no halacha yet, right? Or there's no codification yet. So you have the period of the Goinim, and then the Rishonim, and then the Achreinim. Okay, so Chassidus comes 1698, the Baal Shem Tov was born. Okay. In order to really understand the depth of Chassidus, we have to learn the Nigla, right? Meaning to say, we can learn the Maimer and just get very deep and mystical and philosophical, but at the end of the day, it's so much more gishmak, it's so much more true and absolute when we understand it in the context of a halachic discussion. Literally, that's why I went so elaborately last week. Because to understand it halachically is now to understand it in its holistic fashion, and not just, extracting or cutting the fun parts of Kabbalah, which again can very much intrigue us, but it creates a much more multi-layered, multifaceted understanding. So that's why we're going into it. Okay, so now he says like this. Let's explain. Also I wanted to say as well that you see the Alter Rebbe's mind. That when the Alter Rebbe is learning this Gemara, Ksubas Daf Ches, he has this mimer. That's the wheels are turning to create what we're learning right now. So now we learned a very deep thing in Nigla. We learned an extremely deep Gemara. It's almost like on the edge of philosophical, right? Two forms, one action, machshava. Which one is it? And now we're going to use that as a stepping stone, as an impetus to understand the deeper, more divine service discussion. Let's explain this idea. This idea of why there's a debate, if you should say by the Sheva Brachas, one Yoitzer or two Yoitzer, representing the creation of man or mankind in one action or in two actions, is really a reflection of Adam and Chava, who they are, which really is the essence of male and female, and as it is in the realm of Torah. As we know, Torah is the blueprint for creation. So therefore, the only way that man and woman, humanity and animals and trees and sun, moon and stars, all of this has a blueprint. The blueprint is called Torah. In Torah, which is the blueprint of creation, you have two streams of Torah discussion or learning. One is called Torah shebichsav and Torah shebal peh, a written law and an oral law. And we're now going to say, or we are saying, that Adam represents Torah shebichsav and Chava represents Torah shebal peh. Which again, we're not only speaking about the physical embodiment of these two beings, and they represent different interpretations of Torah. We're speaking about that prior to their actual creation, that's what they were in the this nebulous space called pre-creation. That meaning to say they have to exist in some plane. So in what manner are they existing? So if Torah preceded the world by 2,000 years, so that means that everything that the Torah discusses also precedes the world by 2,000 years. Which would also mean that Adam and Chava are also preceding their own creation. which I know sounds very funny to us because we live in a fragmented concept of time, of past, present, and future, a fragmented concept of time. But let's pretend there wasn't any time. So what is Adam and Chava without a body? Or a soul. And what is male and female without body parts or gender? So we're saying Torah shebichsav, Torah sheba'al peh. That's the origin, that's their source. If we analyze what Torah shebichsav, we don't know what it is yet, we have to learn the mimer. But if we analyze what Torah shebichsav, Torah sheba'al peh is, then that becomes the father, the mother, and Adam and Chava become the offshoots and the precipitation of that nebulous energy called Torah shebichsav and Torah sheba'al peh.
Is that in today's time?
The day is too long for me to recall what I learned 12 hours ago. But maybe. Okay, but does that make sense? Meaning to say, it's not only that once they were created, they represent two streams of Torah interpretation. Rather, they are, their beings, their souls, disembodied from a body, represents Torah shebichsav, Torah sheba'al peh, and therefore they manifest in a certain way. Torah shebichsav b'chinas Adam, b'chinas tipas hazachar, lo yiven shemimenu atzam eschuli. Torah shebichsav is likened to a male in the sense that the sperm, the procreative seed of man, which he says is white, which creates the bone. This is the idea of the origin. Ki Torah shebichsav b'chinas chachma ilah. Torah shebichsav is called the divine wisdom, the supernal wisdom, she'ena ela b'chinas tipa v'nekuda, which is likened to this seminal point, this nucleus, this dot, that is in this nebulous state. That wisdom, and we're not only speaking about human wisdom, we're speaking about divine wisdom, is likened to a lightning bolt in your mind. What are the features of Chachma? So again, I'm gonna summarize in 1 second. I know we're saying a lot in a few lines. What are the features of Chachma? In the sense that Chachma is this power of creativity, imagination, but has not come into a state of expansiveness yet. There is no developmental process yet. It's just inspiration. I have an amazing idea. It has not come into an expanded, comprehensible way to understand all of the details and to flesh out and become more thorough in a general way, in a specific way. It's literally like lightning. It's there and it's not there. That is sparking and illuminated in his mind. The power of intellectuality, which I'll translate even better. It's the reservoir of wisdom. It's not even wisdom itself. It's the power to even think. Meaning we're thinking right now, but there's a source in our being that permits us, that allows us to think the way we think. That's called koyach haskala. Koyach haskala is the potential for thoughtfulness, the potential for coming up with it. And the manner in which it is grasped or revealed is only in a point form. Afterwards, though, it expands and elaborates and becomes more wider and broadened, and then comes into a comprehensible fashion. And then that idea is now manifesting, and what we call it bina. Okay? Bina from the word boneh. You're building something. But in order to build something, what do you need? Ingredients. You need a subterranean, the subterranean waters, which allow for the rivers to flow. So the river is called Harchavas HaNahar, that's called the bina, whereas the subterranean waters, the wellspring, which is say the waters under, or the under the, I don't know what is it called, the subterranean waters that allow for the river to flow. And this is also the nature of Torah shebichsav. So what do we say? We have Adam and Chava, who are the human embodiments of Torah shebichsav and Torah sheba'al peh, which are representing Chachma and Bina. Okay? Which are also representing the idea of the connection between male and female connection. So too Torah shebichsav works in this way that yes, you give me one lightning bolt, one flash, one power of imagination, but you have not given me anything else. How do I know? Because when I open up Torah Shebechsav and I learn the Bible, I have no idea what to do. Nothing. You sat in a sukkah for 7 days. What's a sukkah look like? You shook an esrog, you have to shake an esrog. We don't even have the word esrog in the Torah. Put on tefillin every day. We don't have the word tefillin in the Torah. So anything, any mitzvah that I have in Torah Shebechsav is literally like a lightning bolt. I saw it, but I don't know what I saw. I'm learning it, but I don't know what I'm learning. So therefore, ben chamesh le mikra. A 5-year-old can learn it, and a 9-year-old can learn it, and the 9-year-old still can, if he's only learning the pshat, it can be like a 5-year-old. So what do we need? We need a mother. We can't just have a father. What's the mother? The ultimate mother is Rabbi Akiva. Moshe, who made Rabbi Akiva? Who's the ultimate mother? Who did he marry? No? What's her name? Rachel. So isn't it interesting that Yaakov Avinu and Akiva are the same letters? Because he's a Gilgul of Yaakov, and Yaakov was supposed to marry Rachel, but married Leah in between. So he was given a second chance. That who is he really supposed to marry in a second Gilgul? Rachel alone. Okay. And because of this Rachel, now again, also what happened? I don't know the calculations of the dates, but Yaakov originally what is Ishtam Yoshev Oil, right? He's been learning since he's a baby. Yeah. What age did Rabbi Akiva start learning? 40, right? Because he already had the Yaakov. Again, I don't know if it's at the age of 40 that he stopped learning or whatever it is, but there's some calculation there that Rabbi Akiva compensates for. He only needs to start learning at 40 because he already has the head start of Yaakov Avinu. Okay, so now, Sharei Rabbi Akiva. Who's this Rabbi Akiva? Hayadoirish al koitz v'koitz. Now I'm adding this. The Alter Rebbe doesn't say this here, but just for context, right? Who is the benefactor of Torah Shebechsav? Who's given this to us? Who's given this gift to us? Torah tziva lanu Moshe Merashi Kehilas Yaakov. For the Kabbalists in the room and on Zoom, we know that Moshe is min hamayim mishisihu. He's drawn from water. Which water are we talking about? Bereishis brought lekim eshes mayim haaretz ve'haaretz haisa soyu v'avoyu ve'choshech al pnei tehoim ve'ruach elikim merachefes al pnei ha-mayim ve'haaretz haisa toyu v'avoyu. So what? So where did Batya extract Moshe Rabbeinu's being from? Not just some waters of the Nile. She drew him out from this amorphic stage called toyu. So Moshe Rabbeinu's energy is all toyu energy. What's toyu? Thousands and thousands of lightning bolts. In which what? Only a being of toyu, only a person who's calibrated in the realm of chaos can really digest and understand what's going on. But what does he say to Hashem? What does he say to Hashem? I am not a man of words. And I'm a kvad pel, kvad lashon anoichi. I have a stutter, right? Where's he stuttering from? Why is he stuttering? Because he's chachma vatzilus. Sorry, I offended you. I'm like saying because of the coals. Yes, the coals. Yes, the coals was the physical expression of because he's chachma vatzilus. And chachma, what are we saying chachma is? It's barak hamavrik. It's a lightning bolt. It's a flash. It's pure imagination. It's pure creativity. There is no vessel. There is no bina yet to digest and flesh out and absorb and understand. So therefore, Torah tziva lanu Moshe Merashi Kehilas Yaakov is Torah Shebechsav. On Har Sinai, he's given an image of who? Rabbi Akiva. And he is what? He's the representation of Bina. Again, the Alter Rebbe doesn't say this whole piece, but I'm just giving context that therefore, that's the masculine energy only shows you very little. They're less emotional than men, yeah? Why not? I don't know. Okay? Meaning to say that there's more, the Chachma invades. And the Chachma doesn't allow, if there's an overwhelmingness, again, Chachma is connected to Keser, which is the idea of Toyu. Rabbi Akiva hayadoirish al kol koitz v'koitz tilei tilim shel halachis. Rabbi Akiva expounds on every single thorn of the Torah's letters. Tilei tilim, you know what tilim means? Mounds and mounds of halacha. And Rosh Hashanah says, why are you giving me the Torah? Give it to him. So Hashem says, "Don't worry." He hears Rabbi Akiva teaching his kids, and they said, "Who came up with this? Halacha l'Moshe Misinai. Halacha l'Moshe Misinai." Where did Rabbi Akiva get his energy from? Where does Rabbi Akiva get his ability to expound and elaborate and expand the horizons of Torah? Halacha l'Moshe Misinai. I got it from the husband. I got it from the male energy. So the feminine needs the masculine, and the masculine is jealous of the feminine. Meaning to say, I want what she has. What does she have? She has the uncanny ability to expand and extrapolate and develop the idea. That's called the bina. That's called the oirich, the reichev, the oimek, the length, the width, the depth of the idea. Moshe Rabbeinu says, give it to Aaron. Let him be the spokesman. I'm a stutterer because there's so much light. Chachma is a state of consciousness that's so much light. So now, again, what are these koitz v'koitz? Rabbi Akiva is expounding on the shatnez gats. Shatnez gats are the specific letters that have crowns on them. So they're called like thorns or crowns. Shin, shatnez. Yeah, shin, ayin, tes, nun, zayin, gats. Gimel, and Lain Tzadik. Okay, so Moshe Rabbeinu is given an image of this individual Rabbi Akiva. And Rabbi Akiva is learning mounds and mounds of halachas from the intimations and hints of just mere letters and crowns of the letters in the Torah. Sha'alach es halalu. Sha'alach es halalu. Einan mevu'aris v'niglas begilei asaga bekoitz. These halachas, these aforementioned halachas that Rabbi Akiva is learning or teaching us, are not expounded or revealed or exposed in the formation of a koitz, in the formation of the crown of the letter. Meaning to say, I'm going to ask you, why does the tzaddik have this crown on it? I say, I don't know, that's the Jewish calligraphy, that's how it was created. And so Rabbi Akiva will tell you, no, it's specifically on this word and on this letter because da-da-da-da-da. And he teaches you halacha. Shalach is Allah le'inam evoras b'nigil asaga b'koitz hahu. Rak shekol koitz v'koitz kolul mikama tili tilim shalalachis. That every single thorn, every single crown is including mounds and mounds of halachis. Haklulim v'na'lami b'koitz, that are included and concealed within the thorn, within the crown. Hahu mibichinas ha'elem, in a state of concealment. And therefore, when you see this koitz, when you see this thorn, when you see this specific letter, it is only a hint, an intimation alone. And therefore, what does it mean, a hint or an intimation? That's like chachma. I'll just give you the lightning bolt. I'll just give you a seed that needs to be planted, but it's a seed alone. These points and these thorns are the tagin. The tagin are the crowns. Okay? So now this is very interesting. That what? That the crowns, what is a crown? In Kabbalah, what's a crown? The crown is keser, right? So what are we looking at in the Torah? What do we see? We see chachma and keser, but no bina. Meaning, what's chachma? I'm gonna elaborate what he's gonna say in a second, but just a little spoiler alert. Chachma is the actual letter itself. Keser is whatever's surrounding the letter. Okay, so now we all learned how to write, right, in script and whatever. So you can write an aleph like this, okay? But then you could write it in the way that it's written in the Torah. And then in the Torah itself, you have different letters that have different crowns. So now, in truth, each letter has a crown. Now, what I mean a crown is not only calligraphically, not only in the Hebrew calligraphy, but also in the meaning, in the message behind it. What is the crown? That's the empty space surrounding the letter. The empty space surrounding the letter, we've discussed it a few times. This is the black fire on white fire, Rashi says. Black fire is the knowable wisdom, which is what I can see the actual letter. White fire is the unknowable wisdom, the unfathomable wisdom. And Keser and Chachma are intertwined. So Chachma gives an insight into Keser. And where do we learn this from? I think it's a pasuk from Eov. Chachma me'ayin timatzeh. Literally it means Chachma, wisdom, from where do you come from? Yeah? Like, where do you get your wisdom? You're so smart. No? Chachma, don't read it as a question, read it as a statement. Chachma, you want to know where Chachma comes from? Me'ayin timatzeh. Not ayin with an ayin. Ayin with an aleph. It emerges from ayin, and it emerges from a state of non-existence. That ayin, me'ayin timatzeh, the emergence from that non-existence, that's its keser. All of this, why am I elaborating so much on it? This is all the personification of Torah shebichsav. That when you open up the Sefer Torah, and you learn Bereishis bar Elikim, and you have no idea what it's saying, you want to know why you have no idea what it's saying? Not only because it didn't tell you any details, but specifically because it is expressing to you the chaotic energy of Moshe Rabbeinu, the chaotic energy of Toyu. This is the Olam HaToyu written down, and therefore you can't understand any of it. Why? Because what does Moshe Rabbeinu say? Kvad peh, kvad lashon anoichi. Who is he? Where do we? But again, every single word in Torah is so exact, so particular. Why is he saying kvad peh? Just say ani. Kvad peh u kvad lashon ani. Right? I or ani kvad peh u kvad lashon. I am heart of. My mouth is hardened. My tongue is hardened. What is he saying? Kvad peh u kvad lashon anoichi. No. Where do we have anoichi, Chevra? Anoichi Hashem elikecha asher tzitzicha me'eretz Mitzrayim. Moshe Rabbeinu is saying, I'm not Moshe. I'm anoichi. I'm literally godliness in human form that is manifesting to you what Hashem wants. The same anoichi that was written by the Ten Commandments is the same anoichi that Moshe Rabbeinu is connecting to. So he says, and what is that? That's keser. That's toyu. That's higher than reason. That's higher than logic. That's higher than understanding. So that's why he says to you, I cannot elaborate to you something that is not explainable. I'm coming from a space that is beyond articulation. So she has to extract me, Batya has to extract me from the water. I mean, Hamayim Mishisiu, the same water, the water that was what? The Haaretz Toyu Vavoyu V'choshecha P'neitem Elokim Merachevs Al Pnei Hamayim. Yeah. Oh? Is it? Yeah. What does it say? Amazing. Amazing. No, for those who are frustrated that this is not a Parsha Shir, Baruch Hashem, we're living with the times.
Yeah. And it's also man is the end purpose of creation, and Barakti, I created, and numerical equivalent to the 613.
Barasi, yes. Yeah. It's Taryag. Wow, amazing. Psst, beautiful. No, and we're learning it in Parshas Bereishis. Amazing, amazing. Yeah. Shakayach, thank you.
Yeah. Oh, there was today's one.
Yeah, it was today's one. Yeah. Double check this one.
Okay, so...
Exactly, you brought up the whole idea that the mother of the Torah is referring to the Torah Shabbat Peh.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. Okay, so we're aligned. Baruch Hashem. Okay, so but we're clear on this because he's going to get even more. But just again, the Alter is not saying this about Moshe Rabbeinu here. He speaks about it in another mimer, an amazing mimer in Parshas Shmois, which we've learned before. But again, just for context, we understand this is the idea of Chachma. Chachma is nebulous, is beyond comprehension, is in the transcendent order. Why? Because it's attached to Keser. Chachma me'ayin timatzeh. So it has the same. It's not Keser itself, right? It's not that we're not opening up a Sefer Torah and there's just crowns to nothing. It could also be that too, and we can decode the crowns. There's a letter, and then there's crowns to the letter. That's the Chachma and the Keser. But again, what's it missing? It doesn't have an earth. It doesn't have a mother. It doesn't have Bina. So Moshe Rabbeinu is jealous of Rabbi Akiva. So too, this is applicable to Tanta. Anybody knows what Tanta is? Let's learn some Kabbalah. Yeah, Tanta, you ready? Tanta stands for Te'amim, Nekudais, Tagin, Oisius. And every single word and every single letter that you see in the Torah, you have Tanta. Tanta is Te'amim. In Yiddish, you say trup. The cantillation, the way you sing the word. That's the word, or that's the music beyond the word. Okay? So that's Tamim. Nikudais is the punctuation surrounding the word. Tagin is the crown connected to the letter itself. And then Oisius is the letter itself. Chevra, what is Tanta? Why is it so important? What is this again? Is Atzilus, Bria, Yetzira, Asiya. 4 states of consciousness in every single letter that you see in the Torah. Okay? The cantillation, the sing-song, melodiousness of Torah, that is Atzilus. That's the realm of unification. That what? That you don't even need you're not seeing anything. What is music? Music is, we discussed this many times before, the expression of the heart. It's like literally one with the essence. Okay, that's the cantillation marks. That's the music. Tamim, which is Atzilus. Nun, Nikudas. Nikudas are attached to the letter or detached from the letter. So again, Tamim, the cantillation marks, you don't even see, right? When you open a Torah, you don't even see it, okay? And you don't even know it. Nikudas are the punctuation, which the punctuation is what? Bria. That what? It's not attached to the letter, but it's circumferencing the letter, if that's a word. It's surrounding the letter, right? Choilam, Chirik, Segol, Tzeirei, Patach, Kamatz. Now again, in a physical Sefer Torah, it doesn't have these, but obviously we know we know as Jewish people who try and adhere to Judaism, Lo Savashel Gdiba Chalev Imoy. Yeah? Is it Chalev Imoy or Chalev Imoy? Don't cook a kid in its mother's fat or its mother's milk. In Hebrew, Chalev is fat and Chalav is milk. So how do we know which one is which? How do we know? And I could give you 1,000 more explanations. Right? Bereishis Balakim, Es Hashamayim V'Haaretz, right? Maybe At. I don't know, something like that. Okay, but Chalev and Chalav is very, very important. Right? It will change our whole Judaism. Right? Every kid's like, oh, I wish I could have my... So this is taimim, ta'amim. The cantillation marks, the punctuation surrounding it, that's bria. Tagin is yetzira, okay, which means to say that it's attached to the letter, but not the letter itself. Now again, even though yes, I said before that there's shatnez gats, which are the the 7 letters that have crowns on them, but really every single letter has a crown. Meaning to say the beginning formation of every single letter is its crown. Okay, that's its tag. And then oisis is the letter itself. So the letter itself you see fully, tangibly, right? Bereishis, Beis, Reish, Aleph. That's called the Asiyah of Torah. The crown that is attached to the letter, that's called the Yetzirah of Torah, which is more of the emotional frontier. The Nikudas, which are the punctuation that are not explicitly written in the Torah, but you have to know the difference between Chalev and Chalav, fat and milk, is called the Bria of Torah, that's the intellectuality. And then you have the oneness, the unification, Olam Atzilus, which is the cantillation mark. This is in every single letter and every single word of Torah. Okay? However, what's he trying to say? What's the Alter Rebbe teaching us? As much as you have Tanta, Hakol Ramuzim, they're all hints, they're all intimations, Lekam Inyanim, to elaborate on so many topics, V'kama Soidis Muflaim, and wondrous secrets of Torah are hinted to in the way. Again, you have this week's Parsha and last week's Parsha. I think there's only 3 or 4 places in the Torah it has this, what's it called? Shalshelis, very good. Shalshelis is the, the zigzag, okay? Only 3 places. Last week in that Loit, right? Should he leave Sdoim or not? This week, Eliezer, should he go back and forth or not? And I think there's one more place when Moshe has to tell Aaron that he's going to be the Kohen. This is to get a little the yeshiva.net little plug-in for Yossi Jacobson. He has an amazing class on the Shalshelet. I refer to everybody to that class, but basically it's a cantillation mark that represents confusion and a confounding. I don't know what to do, right? Why was Moshe Rabbeinu confused? Because does he really want to let go of the kahuna? Does he really want to let go of the priesthood? Maybe he was supposed to be the priest, right? He was supposed to be the Kohen. Eliezer, does he really want to fulfill what Avram Avinu wants? Because he really wanted his own daughter to marry Yitzchak. So should he go? He could totally manipulate and sabotage the mission this week's Parsha. Again, I made a achlata to try and mention this week's Parsha in our learning. So I'm doing it. And then what? Last week, right? Sdoim, does Loit really want to leave or not? I think that's what it is. It was so attached to the place. So in each one, there's a confounding, there's a confusion. How do we know this? Torah Sheba'al Peh. But it's based in Torah Shebichsav. That's how we read it. That's why it says, there's a minhag halacha, Shnayim Mikra ve'echad Targum, right? To say the psukim twice and the Targum Unklus once every single week. that basically you say Bereishis B'Elokim Es Hashem Ha'Maretz, Bereishis B'Elokim Es Hashem Ha'Maretz, and then you say the Aramaic translation. It's interesting. A commentary said Shnayim Mikra Ve'Echad Targum is Rosh Tevis Shmois. That what? What is the Shnayim Mikra? Why are you laning the Torah? Because these are the Shmois. These are the names of Hashem. Every single word and every single letter is another name of Hashem. And that's how we connect to our own name, the name of the soul, which is manifest in Torah. Why am I saying this? Because at the end of the day, this is all intimated and hinted to. This is the chachma. This is the confounding chaos of imagination and creativity without a vessel. All of this is the idea of Torah Shebechsav bebichinas Helem. What is the personification of Torah Shebechsav? The idea of concealment. Ubekoyach, and potentiality. You don't say what a beautiful apple seed. You say what a beautiful apple tree that's growing apples. What's an apple seed is, I won't say it's ugly, but there's no dimensionality to it. There's nothing to it, just an apple seed. But this has the whole beauty of the apple tree in it. It's not just going to recreate an individual apple. In this seed, you have ad infinitum. But what's the difference? It's all bekoyach. It's all in a state of potentiality. Veloy bepoyel, and not concretized. Vegiloy, and revealed. Okemashal, as he says it a second time, tipas hazachar, the male procreative energy, procreative seed. Haklula mikoil, which includes the whole entire, zygote, embryo, fetus, child, everything's there, right? Eye color, size, gene pool, DNA, everything is in it. Mikola b'chinesh bevlad, loyven shemimenu atzames v'gidim v'chuli. As the Gemara in Nida says, that this fetus, right, the whiteness of the bones and the sinews or veins comes from this sperm, comes from the sperm cell. Shebetipa ahi. But can you see it? At that point, in the nucleus, in the seminal point of this sperm cell, there is no individuation. You don't see bones, you don't see sinews. It's all in a state of koyach. It's all in a state of potentiality. That's why the mashal for it is a seed. However, eventually they'll come out into an expression, but in the state of as it is. Again, not only in the male, but it specifies, I don't know if he says here, but specifically in the male brain, right? Meaning to say, it's not like you're holding it on a petri dish. It's mamish in the brain of the male that has all of this existing. And what's crazy is, right, it's in the brain of the male, you could even say, as he is a baby, as he is in his mother's womb, that he has the potential to procreate ad infinitum. Eventually it stops, whatever, but the idea is that it's all in a state of concealment. However, in order for this state of emergence and the state of revelation to occur, what do you need? You need the feminine energy, you need the ground, right? You need the earth. You need 9 months of gestation, 9 months of bodily development in the womb, in the mother's stomach, in the female dafka. Shesham mitzdayer havlad. In that space, what are you doing? You're now building the building of a child. And she eventually pushes it out in a state of revelation, but not stam revelation, that she's just going to give you the sperm that was placed there. She's going to give you a whole baby. With individuated limbs and cells and details and all of the above. It's quite remarkable, yeah? I mean, it happens every day. What is it, like, I don't know how many times per second somebody's bored? It's amazing. It's really literally Chachma and Bina combining and creating this reality called beings. What we just discussed in the relationship between male and female, physically speaking, and again, I'm giving you other examples of male and female energy, the idea of the seed in the ground, and the idea of an idea versus an articulation of that idea, right? Malchus Peh, we said last week. Okay? This is all expressing the relationship between the hiddenness of Torah Shebechsav and the revelation of Torah Shebal Peh. which I'm adding, again, humbly speaking, just for context, the difference in energy between Moshe Rabbeinu as the benefactor of Torah Shebechsav and Rabbi Akiva, the benefactor of Torah Shebal Peh. Right? Kulam aliba de Rabbi Akiva, it says. Everything goes according to Rabbi Akiva. And again, Rabbi Akiva haya doirish chuli, the fact that Rabbi Akiva would expound and extrapolate on the crowns and the letters. Rabbi Akiva haya makar Torah Shebal Peh, k'may she'amnu stam sifri chuli, v'kula aliba de Rabbi Akiva. Right? It says, our sages teach us that a part of Torah elucidation, Sifri, is different midrashim based on depending on if it's Bereishis or Shmois or Vayikra, etc. Right? Each one wrote their own thing. Okay? And eventually it says Vekula alib de Rabbi Akiva. But all of them writing their own thing, whatever it was, is all going in accordance with Rabbi Akiva. It's because of Rabbi Akiva that Torah Shebal Peh exists. What is that Kabbalistically? Shehi b'chinas chachma tata. He just said chachma ilah is Torah Shebechsav and chachma tata is Torah Shebal Peh. So again, any time we bring up something Kabbalistic, we have to explain a little bit. What is the difference between higher wisdom, literally translated higher wisdom, and lower wisdom? Okay? Is the difference, and this is not the greatest mashal, but is the difference between an architect and workers. Okay? An architect is chachma ilah. Okay, and again, it's not bad or good. Oh, he went to school for 25 years and they just became construction workers. I'm not speaking about the social classes of these people. I'm speaking more about what they represent. Okay, Chachma Ilah is the architect. The architect has to formulate the blueprint, and sees the whole entire structure of the building, sees the whole entire structure of the enterprise, sees everything. But his vision is lacking what? Literally concrete. It's lacking brick and mortar. It's lacking a good team of guys who are ready to actually build the building. Now, you can't just hire me to build a building. Why not? I'm neither an architect and I'm definitely not a good worker. So if you give me a hammer, I'm gonna, my thumb's gonna be bigger, not the nail. So you have to have what? You have to have people who are trained on how to actually implement the blueprint. This is called Chachma Tata. Chachma Tata is not the creator of wisdom, it's the implementer of wisdom. It's the receiver of wisdom. So we associate Chachma Tata with feminine energy. Chachma Tata is a euphemism for Malchus or Bina. In the sense that they are the workers. They bring that which is in potential, it's just blueprints, you're not going to get anything done, and they bring it to concrete actualization. But it's still called Chachma nonetheless. Why? Because you still have to have some level of sophistication, some level of understanding of how to read the blueprint. If you give me a blueprint, I have no idea what it's saying. But you give it to them, and they train themselves, and they know, oh, this goes here, and this goes there. And again, you can use this example for an interior designer. You can use this example for anything that a home requires, let's say. From the actual physical building of it, to the more, the mystique that a home has. All of this is Bina energy. The implementation of Chachma, not Chachma Tata, lower wisdom. You can't read it like that. Chachma Tata, that they are in tune with Chachma Ilah, and they know how to string that Chachma into the Tata, into the lower. You hear the difference? Chachma Tata is, oh, you're smart and you're stupid. No, that's not what we're saying. Chachma Tata is we know how to read the blueprint in order to bring that tremendous wisdom, that tremendous brilliance into a physical, concretized way. You hear the difference? And that's Torah Shebechsav, Torah Shebal Peh. Not one is smarter and one is stupid. That's very infantile to look at it that way. Rather, each one has their own role. Each one has their own specific way of tuning in. So Chachma Ilah is what we're saying. Moshe Rabbeinu, as he's receiving from Keser, as he's aligned with his energy of Toyu, that he cannot articulate to you all of the elaboration that Torah inevitably has. So he's stuck in that place. It's the genius that has no way of sharing, but he needs a Chachma Tata. He needs the feminine energy. He needs the Rabbi Akiva to be able to now implement and manifest and see exactly what you wanted. And you see this with people, right? I see what you want. Meaning to say, I didn't come up with the idea, right? I don't have that vision. I'm not the visionary like Chachma Ilah is, but I see exactly what you want. I know exactly where this should go. The couch should go here. The table should go here. This should go here. So you have to be very in tune with Tata. What does this sound like? Tati and Mommy, maybe. Yet the father and the mother, not only in the physical relationship between husband and wife, but also in the subsequent emotional connectivity between husband and wife. The husband, in that will once the child is born, is considered like this makif, right? Like he's just there. What's he doing? He's not doing anything. We assume, right? He gave and he dispatched, right? And he left. The mother, in the not only the emotional but the physical relationship with the child, once the child's born, right? It needs to nurse. It's literally clinging onto the mother. That's called chachma tata. That's the implementation and the understanding of what the child wants once it's physicalized. If that's a word. Okay? That with one word in the written law, for example, like Shabbos, shenemra b'Torah bichlal naaseh masechta shleima shel gilui pratei halachos shahilchos Shabbos ma'ahen ha'avis melachos v'ketzem mischai v'hen v'chol inyanim v'chol pratei v'diktuken. There are only two mitzvahs in Torah shebichsav that teach us about Shabbos. What are those mitzvahs? Two. I'm not speaking about 39 melachos. What are the two? Nope. Yes, you should sanctify the Shabbos. How?
What was the question?
What are the two mitzvahs in Torah shebichsav that teach us about Shabbos? You're right, Dad. You're right. It is a mitzvah, but we don't know how. The Torah doesn't tell us to make kiddush on wine. And how do we sanctify? You'll tell me, okay, so make kiddush. So what does that mean, make kiddush? Kiddush.
The negative mitzvah he was gathering, there's the positive and the negative?
I'm speaking about negative. Sorry, maybe I'm speaking about the don't do's of Shabbos. What does it say? Good. So that was what was he oyster? But even that is already Tisha B'al Peh. What does it specifically say?
You give fire. You can't
Shomer, how? How do we shomer? How do we zacher? How? Lo yisavaru eish b'chol meshvei is one, very good. Good. Don't make a fire in your dwellings, and very good, caring as well. Those are the only two negative commandments of the whole entire. Everything else is positive, but the positive doesn't teach us what to do. You hear the difference? In the negative, we know, I'm not allowed to make a fire in my dwelling. By the way, the Sadducees literally don't have fire on Shabbos. Meaning we say if it's before Shabbos, right, as long as it's covered, you can use it. In the old days, right?
That's the reason why we have hot food on Shabbos.
Correct. Dafka. Very good. To stech the tzedukim. Yeah. Okay. So now you make, I don't know how long Shabbos is, 150, I think 157, 158 pages. One of the longest Masechta is Masechta Shabbos. 158, I think. Kuf Nun Ches, maybe? Somebody tell me if I'm wrong. Okay? And the halachas are crazy, right? 39 melachos, Av and Tolda, and all their specifics and all their details. This you see, a tremendous romance between Torah shebichsav and Torah shebal peh. I gave you only a very, very little modicum of perspective, and now you give me a whole masechta. This is the energy of male and female. I gave you a little tipa, and the feminine energy now elaborates and extrapolates and creates a whole being from it. Now, that's not to say that once the father gives, he should just leave. And it's a very modern day discussion, right? That means to say that the father's energy is makif. Meaning to say, the architect left once the building was built? No. Who are you going to say? You're not going to say that, these builders built the building. Whose name is going to be on the building? The architect. You know who made the Guggenheim, right? Who made this museum? It's the architect that came up with it, right? The sponsor, exactly. So therefore, the father's like the sponsor, right? He's out of touch with maybe the emotional, needs of the child. Again, maybe this changes as the child grows. You can have a greater relationship. I'm speaking about physically speaking, right? That the child is so codependent on the mother, specifically because that's what it needs at that point. Now look at this. You guys ready for this? V'lachein, and therefore, based on this discussion, Nikra Torah shebal peh, we call another name for Torah shebal peh, the oral law, B'Shem Chava, by Chava. What is Chava? Chava literally means to express, or to emerge, or to move, depending on Aramaic or Hebrew. Kabbalistically, he says, Ki Chava b'gematria hamili shel havaya. Give me a minute here to explain this, but I'm gonna read and translate, and we're gonna explain. Okay? Ki Chava b'gematria hamili shel havaya. Chava is the numerical equivalent of the milui of Shem Havaya. What's the milui of Shem Havaya? Literally the fulfillment, the fullness of the name Yud Kei Vav Kei, which equals She'ul Oile Yutes, which equals Yutes, which equals 19. I'm going to explain in a second. Ki ha-milui hu gili ha-helam. What is a milui? What does it mean, the fulfillment of something? It means the emergence or the expression out of a state of concealment. As this is explained elsewhere. V'gam chava loshen gilui, and chava literally means gilui, revelation. Ki targum vayaged v'chavi. It says a pasuk vayaged, and he told. And how does Targum Unklus, I think it's Unklus, explains the word vayaged, v'chavi. What's v'chavi? When you tell somebody something, what are you telling them? You're telling them what's in your heart, what's in your mind. You're expressing and you're exposing what you really feel. So now we understand the Haggadah Lashon Hamshacha, that telling over is the idea of Hamshacha, of bringing down, of emerging, Shenimshach mehelam el hagilui, which is the state of concealment, the state of revelation. And that's why Adam says his wife's name is Chava, not Chaya. What's the difference between Chava and Chaya? Ki hi haisa em kol Chai, because she is the mother of everything. Chaver, look at this. If she's em kol Chai, if she's the mother of all living creatures, isn't Chaya, right, the progenitor, the beginning of that of all of the Chayim, of all of the Chai of life? So why are you calling her Chava Dafka? Because we have to understand, Kabbalistically, there's a difference between a Vav and a Yud. What's the difference between a Vav and a Yud, my friends? How do you draw a Yud and how do you draw a Vav? A Yud is the Chachma. So we can't call her Chachma. She's Bina, she's Torah Sheba'al Peh. So we dafka need a Vav. We need a Hamshacha. Vav in Hebrew literally means a hook. And it looks like a rope. And you need to now concretize it and reveal it to the world. And bring it to the forefront. So Yidavka calls her Chava, loy likra shma Chaya, ela lefich shechava lashin gilui, because Chava literally means revelation. I don't just want her to be the mother of everything and be like me, the father. If you put a Yud there, she could leave. She could abandon ship, because the Yud is a masculine letter. We spoke about this last Shabbos? No, we didn't learn this. We learned this a few years ago. We learned a Maimer on Shabbos. Why Dafka? Sarai had to become Sarah. Sarai is, the Yud was masculine. And in Hashem's name is Yud Kei Vav Kei. Yud is Chachma. So now if you leave her Sarai in the amorphic state of Chachma, she can't give birth. Sarai doesn't give birth, but Sarah gives birth. Right? Sarai means my princess. There's a certain transcendence that she's with Hashem. If she's with Hashem, then she's not Ein Kol Chai, then she's not the mother of everything. Sarah means the princess. Meaning to say she's the energy of all creation. I'm connecting between Chava and Sarah. Chav is the idea of, like we said before, to expose, to tell over. This is the meaning of she was the mother of everything. What does it mean she's the mother of everything? Is she physically the mother of everything? Yes. Because she's the representation of motherhood, and that's exactly what motherhood, that's exactly what Bina, that's exactly what Torah Sheba'al Peh, that's exactly what Rabbi Akiva does, is it reveals from a state of clandestine energy to a state of exposed energy. Right, the mother of the children, she is joyous. And Simcha is also associated with Bina. That the fetus is developing in her. And she brings it from a state of concealment to a state of revelation. Okay, what was the thing about Chava being 19 and Milui? Let's speak about it. Okay, Yud Kei Vav Kei equals 26. That's the ineffable name of Hashem. Yud Kei Vav Kei, 26. Okay. Now, in Kabbalah, you have something called the letter itself and the miluyim of the letter. So, my name is Eli. I start with an Aleph. How do you spell Aleph? So, how do you spell my full name? Aleph, Lamed Pei is Aleph. Lamed would be Lamed Mem Dalid. Okay? Yud would be Yud Vav Dalid. We're getting it? Okay? So now you have something called your Miluyim. Every single person in this room has the Miluyim of their name. The Miluyim are the letters that are the middle letter, the Miluyim are not the Rosh Tevis. So the Miluyim of Aleph is Lamed Dalid, but you don't include Aleph. The Miluyim of Lamed is Mem Dalid, but you don't include the Lamed. I'll say it again. How do you spell Aleph? Aleph, Lamed, Pei. So what's the miluyim of Aleph? Only Lamed and Pei. Right? What's the miluyim of Lamed? Only Mem and Daled. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
So hey, is it with an aleph or?
Oh, very good. Depends on how you spell Hey. Okay. So now Yud K Vav K, depending on how you spell it, fully with either a Yud or a Vav, either a Yud or an Aleph or a Hey. In Kabbalah, it's called Milui Alfin, Milui Yudin, or Milui Heyin. Depending on how you spell Yud K Vav K in the fullness, you'll either get not 26 anymore, because 26 is only Yud K Vav K. You'll get 45, 52, 63, or 72. Each one of those gematrias doesn't only equal a number, but represents an energy, represents a dimension. For example, Yud K Vav K, if it's spelled with Alephs, equals 45. Okay, so that means Yud Vav Daled, and then Hey Aleph, Vav, Aleph Vav, and Hey Aleph equals 45. Okay, 45 is gematria Adam. Okay, now if you spell Yud K Vav K with a Hey, with a Mili Hey, you'll get, meaning the Hey has a Hey to it, I think, you'll get 52. Okay, you can do the math. You're ChatGPTing me. See, Shabbos, I like learning and teaching on Shabbos. Nobody can ChatGPT me. Okay, so now we're getting it. 45 equals Adam. This is the significance, because when you say Shem Yud Kei Vav Kei with the Milui of Aleph, you're now getting 45, which equals Adam. Versus 52, if you spell it even one letter off, which equals 52, which is Gematria Behema. So already you have two, not just words, okay, Adam and Behema, you have two different tracks of reality. You have animalistic energy, which represents the world of Tayu, chaos, disorder, and you have human energy, which represents the world of Tikkun, and order and organization. Okay? Now what is Sag and Av? 63 and 72, beyond the scope of our lecture to discuss those things right now. But again, depending on how you spell out the name Yud Kei Vav Kei, you'll equal one of those four numerical values. Was this clear thus far?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, so what's the milui of Shem Hashem? With an aleph. Yeah, dafka with an aleph. Is 45 minus 26 equals?
19.
Beautiful. 19 is Gematria Chava. You saw how you got that? So you're spelling Yud Kei Vav Kei, but you're not including the Yud and the Hey and the Vav and the Hey. You're getting Vav Dalid plus Aleph plus Aleph Vav. How do you spell Vav? Vav Aleph Vav, Aleph Vav. And you're spelling Hey, Hey Aleph, so you're only including. So whatever the milui is, again, like we said, the milui of Aleph is Aleph Lamed Pei. Yeah? So you're only including the Lamed and the Pei. What is the significance of this? What is a milui? How do you used to translate milui in English? The fullness of something. When something feels full, it's the full elaboration. It's the expression of it. So Chava is gematria Yutes. Why is that significant? Because Chava is the milui of Yud Kei Vav Kei. Adam is 45. Yud Kei Vav Kei is 26. If you don't have Chava, you don't have mankind. You don't have the human being. If Adam equals 45, and the difference between 45 and Hashem's name, Yud Kei Vav Kei, is 26, is 19, what is she doing? She allows Adam to be a vessel for Yud Kei Vav Kei. That's Yutes. We got it? A little bit? So again, in the Aramaic, Chava also means to express, to emerge. The emerging of the letters of Yud Kei Vav Kei, again, when we don't include the beginning of it, is Gematria Chava. Chava is Yutes. Interestingly enough, I haven't seen this anywhere. Chevra, when did Chassidus begin?
Late 1700s.
Somebody was released in prison on what date? From prison. Yud Tes Kislev. What's Yud Tes? What's Yud Tes? Chai, we like Chai in Yiddishkeit, right? Chai in Yiddishkeit. Or Tesvav of the month, right? Tu B'Av, Tu B'Shvat, Tesvav Nisan. What's this Yud Tes? So you think about it. What is Chassidus? And when did Chassidus begin? People say, why do you have to learn Chassidus? It was never revealed. Learn Mishnah, learn Gemara, learn Halacha. Yud Tes Kislev is the feminine energy of the whole Torah. Yud Tes Kislev is the Chava of what Adam is. Like we said, Moshe Rabbeinu Torah Shebechsav, that's the whole Torah. Rabbi Akiva's Torah Shebal Peh. So what is the Alter Rebbe on Yud Tes Kislev? Again, this is I haven't seen it anywhere, and if it's what we say in Yiddish, a boich svara, just coming from my hip, you can. I'm open to criticism, but this is what I'm just thinking out loud right now. That Yud Tes Kislev is what? Is the hidden of the hidden. That's what Chassidus is. And eventually it needed to emerge. It needed to Chava. On what day better than what? Yutes, Kislev. Why Dafka Kislev? Yutes is the emergence, is the Chava, is Gematria Yutes, is the expression. Why Dafka Kislev? What month was the Torah Shebichsav given? The third month from Nisan. Nisan, Iyar, Sivan. What month is Kislev? The third month from Tishrei. We know the difference between Tishrei and Nisan is Isarusa de Le'ela, Isarusa de la Sata, an awakening from above, an awakening from below. Meaning to say, when we download from above the heavenly Torah, we get Sivan, we get Moshe Rabbeinu. But what happens when we don't have revelation? And we're going to discuss it soon. What happens when there's nighttime? What's the difference between summer and winter? It's night and day, meaning to say longer days represents the idea of more openness, more less concealment, right? Whereas winter, and also spiritually speaking, right? The warm weather, this idea of SAD, seasonal affective disorder. People get depressed just not because they're clinically depressed, but because that's it. I have no more daytime, 4:15 is Shkia. I can't even daven Shachris anymore. That was for the guys. Yeah? So therefore, Dafka, when do we need the most light? In the most dark. Kislev is the darkest month. Kislev is Dafka. How do I know this also? We have a precedent. I'm not just making it up. Yutis Kislev, the Alter Rebbe. Chanukah is the month of what? The light, but Dafka in the most wintry, cold, frigid, dark month. But again, that's all Nigle. That's still the revealed, exoteric, meaning to say we have the Chanukah story in Gemara Shabbos. But what happens to the hidden of the hidden? So Dafka and Yutes, the Chava of the month. But which month? Kislev. Dafka, the third month. It's just the inverse of when the Torah was received. Can the Torah Shebal Peh, meaning to say Chassidus, the Torah Shebal Peh of the Torah Shebal Peh, become revealed? If that makes sense at all. Again, that's not the Alter Rebbe. That's not what the Maimer says. Vezeo, look at the words that he uses. I'm holding on the second paragraph of the second column on page 12. We have a pasuk in Tehillim. Chevre, what Tehillim is this? I didn't make this up. Yoim leyoim yabia oimer. I'm going to translate here. Day to day. We say this in davening on Shabbos, but it's also Kapitel Tehillim. 1 second. Where do we say this? Do we not say it on Shabbos? We do say it on Shabbos. Yes, the first one. Lam natzech with brother David. Hashamayim misabrin koid kel. Okay, for the choir master, a psalm of David. The heavens recount the glory of the Almighty. The sky proclaims His handiwork. You ready for this? Yoim leyoim yabia oimer velayla lelayla yechave da'as. Okay, day to day speech streams forth. Night to night expresses knowledge. So anybody who is doubting the word chava means express, here you have it in English. Yechave means to express knowledge. Now, what do we just associate? No. What is chachma ilah? Is like yoim, right? The imagination, the openness. Again, even though it's concealed. Laila lelayla, yechave das. When do you need chava? Is chava revelation or concealment? When you have too much concealment, you need now revelation. But when you have so much concealment, dafka laila. So now he's going to make a play on words. Look how beautiful this is. Yoim the yom. Again, it's very important to translate the words that when we say the Hebrew, we understand what we're saying. Yoim the yom yabia oimer. David HaMelech says, day to day, speech streams forth. Velayla lelayla, and night to night, yechave das. Night expresses knowledge. So there's some type of association that speech is connected to the daytime, and expressing knowledge is connected to the nighttime. Okay, and again, the word for expressing in Hebrew is yechave, which is the same letters as chava. Look how the Alter Rebbe sees this. Yoim leyoim, day to day, bichinas Torah shebichsav. What is happening? What is the energy of day to day? Is the idea of Torah shebichsav. Yabia oimer. It streams forth His word. Oimer, His word, Rasha Tevis, Aleph Mem Reish, Rasha Tevis is the acronym for Eish Mayim Ruach. Yoim leyoim yabia Eish Mayim Ruach. Day to day, Hashem streams forth his fire, his water, and his wind. We'll explain in a second. Yabia. This word yabia, right, which means streams, has the same etymology. What does it mean, yabia, in Hebrew? Kima'ayan hanoveya, right? It says about Rabbi Nachman of Breslev. What did he say? The pasuk says, Nachal novea mikol chachma. Nachal novea mikol chachma is Nachman. Okay, and they say this. The pasuk represents him. Nachal novea mikol chachma. The stream of Nachal is the streaming stream. Novea means to stream, to sprout forth. So kemaya na novea, like the wellspring that flows. So when is there flow? Yoim leyoim yabia oimer. His oimer, his eish mayim ruach, which are what? Eish mayim ruach are the three elements of creation. Why are we not saying a fourth? What are we missing? What's the fourth element, which is the fundamental stuff of creation?
Gomi.
But eish mayim ruach, how do you say it? Afar. Very good. Earth. We're missing earth. Why are we missing earth? Because earth is feminine and we're focusing on the masculine. Amar is like the words. Eish mayim ruach is the periphery. It's flowing like a wellspring that flows from its source. But what's the problem with a wellspring? It's still attached, it's still cleaving to its source. And it's united with it. Being the Torah Shebechsav is what? The divine supreme wisdom. We said that's like who? That's like the architect that's just printing out his blueprints. And there, the revelation of the infinite light, Hashem is located in Chachma. And therefore there, Yabia Kemaya Nanevea, it's flowing and streaming like a wellspring, Shenevea Min HaMakar, that's flowing from its source. However, Dafka like a wellspring and not like a river. A wellspring does not form rivulets. It stays in its place. And it does not extend with length and width. It's only a flow of wisdom alone. What's the problem with a flow of wisdom? Like we said, this incredible lightning bolt of imagination. But you need a vessel to hold it. It's only a seminal point. It's only a nucleus, a nebulous flash. Ubarak HaMavrik. So why are we associating that with Hashem's word? Right? We said, Yoim leyoim yabia oimer. Day to day streams his word. What's the significance of fire, water, and wind? Those are the three elements that stay in a state of concealment, ubikoyach, and in a state of potentiality, and does not emerge in a state of manifestation and actuality. Because there is no individuation between fire, wind, and water yet. Unless it comes to the realm of the body, comes into the realm of the earth. They're only in a state of streaming, but streaming like the wellspring that is still this reservoir, the subterranean waters. Like the inter-inclusion of the wellspring, this reservoir, underwater, that is constantly attached and tethered to its source. Who Ein Sof Baruch Hu, this is called the infinite light of Hashem. Havaya b'chachma. Hashem is manifest in chachma. However, that's all. So again, what do we speak about Eish Mayim Ruach? That the oimer, the words that Hashem used to create the world is still theoretical. It's still transcendent. It's still subconscious. It needed an actual physical reality to manifest. So therefore we say Bereishis bar Elokim es hashamayim v'az haaretz, and then you have the 10, in fancy English, it's called the 10 divine fayats. You go look up what fayat means. Yeah, the 10 divine utterances. But it says Bereishis nami maimerhu. Bereishis is also an utterance. That means to say that in order for the what's the word? I don't say the airiness, but there's a certain lack of tangibility of the Eish Mayim Ruach elements in order for them to actually manifest, it needs the oxygen of the earth. It needs the earth itself to be revealed. However, ve'layla le'layla yechav da'as. Night to night, he reveals, he expresses wisdom. Bechinas Torah Shebal Peh, yechav da'as. Dafka in Torah Shebal Peh is the emergence of das. Bebechinas Gilu, in a state of expression. Leva'er ulefaret prate hischalkus, to elaborate and to go into the details and to then create this division and individuation of the parts. Like we said, what happens in the mother's womb is now the development of each of the fetus's limbs and organs, etc. As it is in Seder Shtalshlus, that it becomes much more elaborate and much more abundant and much more intense. Amazing. What does the Medrash teach us? That Moshe Rabbeinu on Har Sinai, how did he know the difference between daytime and nighttime? And what was the significance of knowing the difference between daytime and nighttime? If he was in this, I wanted to say the word before, ethereal. If he was in this ethereal state of existence, is because when he learned Torah Shebichsav, Mikra, that's how you know it was daytime. Which means the idea of attached to your source. When you're attached to your source, you need much less elaboration. You need much less concretization. You need much less articulation. What does it sound like, guys, from last week? No, we had two types of brachas, right? One, the short one and the long one. We said, when do you have to say a short bracha, matbeya katzar? When you're closer to the source. When do you need a seal? When do you need a stamp? When do you need a signature? When you're revealing too much. So now, Moshe Rabbeinu is learning Torah Shebichsav. That's how he knows it's daytime. Daytime represents the idea of attachment to his source, and therefore there's an openness. The Or Ein Sof is shining. And when the Or Ein Sof shines, you don't even need a vessel. When do you need a vessel? When do you need a funnel? When do you need to be articulate and know what you're talking about? Not in this class, obviously. But when you have a crowd, when you have a zulas in Chassidus, when you have somebody outside of you, when is that? That's Torah Shebal Peh. Torah Shebal Peh, that's how he knows it's nighttime. At night, what's the idea of nighttime? The idea of nighttime is now I'm detached from my source. We spoke about this last week, right? About in Eishes Chayil, right? Vayakam ba'oid laila. She wakes up still in the middle of the night. Vatiten terev levesa. She gives fodder to her household. This is the idea of malchus, waking up the night. Vayakam ba'oid laila. Not that she wakes up at night. Her being is able to uplift and wake up. Vayakam means to uplift also. She wakes up the night, meaning to say she uplifts the nighttime energy. But how did you get to nighttime energy in the first place? There had to be a detachment. There had to be a separation. In the realm of separation, in the realm of feeling detached from your source, which we're calling nighttime, what is Moshe Rabbeinu learning at Har Sinai? Mishnah. Mishnah's Torah Shebal Peh. That's how he knows it's nighttime. He knows it's nighttime because the Mishnah represents the idea of lacking full synchronicity with its source. And therefore you have to tell me so much. Again, we think that we're looking at Torah Shebal Peh as like the most amazing thing. Why? Because it gives us the understanding of Torah Shebichsav. But in truth, from Moshe Rabbeinu's vantage point, Oila Matoyu, Chachma Ilah, he doesn't need Torah Shebal Peh. Why? Because he's Davuk B'Ma'or. He's cleaving to his source. As long as he's cleaving to his source, no vessel is required. As long as you are intimate with your beloved, as long as you're connecting to the Creator, then what? Chashai, silence is golden. You don't need to scream, you don't need to yell, you don't need to shout. Shemona Esrei, what do we say? Is in a state of silence. Why? Because you're so connected, you're so one. So therefore, what type of bracha is that? Matbeya katzar. That's the concise bracha, not the elaborate one. Only when you now have to go into a space of disconnectedness and lacking alignment to your source, to your core, the idea of Laila, that's when you need to be elaborate. That's when you need to put a seal on your letter, like we spoke about last week. That's called the Matbeya Aruch. Semi-clear a little bit? Okay. V'hinei, now this becomes amazing. Again, you see literally a building built. Now we're getting to the crux. V'hinei bracha rishona keneged adam harishon. Back to our handy siddur. Okay, what do we say? What was the machlekes of the Gemara? should you say Yoitzer Ha'adam once, or should you say it twice? Right? And what was the complication there? There's an argument, philosophically speaking, if what? Like, I don't know if it's philosophy or historically speaking, chronologically speaking, did Hashem create Adam and Chava in two separate acts of creation? Or did he create Adam and Chava in one act of creation with the intention that they should become individuated? So now, again, Levi says from the Gemara that I'm only giving I'm only doing 5 Sheva Brachas, not 6. Again, the first one is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The first one is Beri Pri Hagafen, or the last one is Beri Pri Hagafen. Okay, so he's saying I'm only giving you 5 out of 6. Okay, and that's what I'm only telling you Yoitzer Adam once. Whereas who was the other one? Reb Asi says no, I'm going to give you both. And what was their debate? What was their machlokes? Is what does Hashem want, or what did He do? In the realm of action, Hashem only created man and woman once. Their beings was this homogeneous being in which male and female bodies were created in one entity, and therefore to validate that I'm only going to tell you Yoitzer Adam, the creator of man, once. Whereas Reb Asi says we don't go by the action, we go by the intention. Yes, even though in the action man was only created once, meaning humanity was only created in one act of creation, but in the realm of intention, Hashem desired that yes, I created them in one occurrence, in one act of creation, but I intended for them to be separate. I intended for them to be male and female eventually. And in honor of that, I'm going to bless you with a second one. Again, I'm going to read it in English just for the context because we're going to use it a lot. The first one is Baruch Atah Hashem Melech Haolam, Yoitzer Adam, creator of man. Okay, and man, not only physical man, means humanity. This physical being, which is this homogeneous creature between male and female. Now, the second one is Blessed you Hashem, who created man in His image, in the image of His likeness. Why twice? Adam and Chava. He fashioned his form and prepared for him from his own self an everlasting edifice. Okay, so v'hitkin lo mimenu binyan ad de'ad. So he fashioned from him his own self everlasting edifice. Who's that? Who's the binyan ad de'ad? Dafka Chava is the binyan ad de'ad. He's what? He's the original molding, right? He's the original substance, right? Like the procreative masculine energy. But now he has to give it to the feminine in order to now elaborate, extrapolate, and build a building. So what's the conclusion? Blessed are you, Hashem, creator of man. Now we're going to see why. Now, again, for those who know the difference, we have a matbeya katzar and a matbeya aruch. The first one is matbeya katzar. Baruch Atah Hashem Yoitzer Adam. Only a paiseach bebaruch, only an opening with baruch, but does not conclude with baruch. The second one is Baruch Atah Hashem, and then Baruch Atah Hashem Yoitzer Adam. And now we're going to see why. Because whenever you're dealing with the women, Chaver, don't get offended, you need more protection. Yeah? Whenever you're dealing with giluyim, or whenever you're dealing with nighttime energy, the feminine is all created for the sake of the night, to reveal in the night, but the night requires more protection. The night requires more shmira. And being that it requires more shmira, it needs a chasima. Ksiva va chasima toiva. Right? The letter can't be written by anybody else, so I need more protection. So we're going to see.
Wait,
Yeah?
Rabbi, what kind of protection?
What type of protection? We're speaking about a greater level of godliness, basically saying Hashem's name again, but specifically in the lower states of existence. So meaning to say it's the difference between me, how I'm dressed in my house, versus me going out in a 20-degree weather. Is that okay? Meaning to say, because now I have to deal or cope with the elements, I'm going to now put on a coat and a sweater and a jacket. Is that called protection? Yeah. Okay.
Got it. Thank you.
No euphemisms here. We're not.
You're setting more boundaries?
Helpful. Thank you.
Boundaries, yeah, maybe, yeah. So if you want to use that term. Let's see. He's gonna tell us what we're gonna get an idea of what it is. The first bracha, again, who are we blessing right now? We're blessing literally this Adam and Chava under the chuppah. And we're giving them a bracha of that they should be like Adam, and then should they be like Chava? That's the question. Let's see. Meaning to say, do we want, or are we are comfortable with unity? Okay, we're going to get psychological in a second, but we are comfortable with unity, which means to say, maybe we want that Adam and Chava should just stay united in one homogeneous being. And we're calling that entity, male and female together, Adam. And we love that. Yotzera Adam. Just be one with each other. Just do exactly what Hashem made you to do. How did Hashem make you? Hashem made you one. There is no two. There is male and female, but it is clinging to each other in one entity. So the first bracha is blessing. What does bracha mean in Kabbalah and Chassidus? We're drawing down the energy of Adam Arishan when we say Yotzer HaAdam, which, like we just said, Shehi b'cheres chachma ilah, this is the supreme wisdom, this is the architect, the imagination, the wisdom, the creativity. Attached to the core, this is the wellspring, the subterranean waters, the reservoir that you don't see. And you don't see it because it's so one with its source. Torah shebichsav, right? The madness, the chaos of Moshe Rabbeinu that stutters specifically because he doesn't want to talk and he doesn't need to talk, because in Moshe Rabbeinu's world there is nothing outside of his being other than Hashem. This is the idea that you need a blessing to now draw down the infinite light into wisdom. What does it mean? Yoitzer, he formed. He who formed man. For example, like a person who forms some type of image, right? Some type of molding. He crafts. That he's crafting the image of this clay, let's say. And the image that comes from this crafting, that this crafting, this molding, right? Adam is not what? What do we say Adam's body was from? The four edges of earth, right? We are a conglomerate of all of the whole entire earth filled together. So now there's the guf geilemes amateches, that you just have this glob of being. Okay, you just have this glob of clay, a goylem, right? But then there's some type of formation. That's called Yoitzer HaAdam. That from clay, from earth, he made this image called man, called human being. Umar'eu maseu, oyatzur shemitzayin alav, hu gilo yachoyim shenasa al tmuna zu davka. V'raitzir ze einoi davar nifra v'ein atzir nir davar b'fnei atzmei ela shayidei hatzir misra et tavnis hakli be'ifin yoser naiva mikama shaya golmei. So now what's the difference between the clay and the image that's created from the clay? Is that now you haven't changed anything. You just rearranged it. Okay? You took the same mass, the same substance, and now you just formed it. And the creation of the vessel itself is requiring this forming and this revealing. So too in the analogy of man, which personifies the written law, which again we said the written law is so succinct and so concise and so not elaborate because it's so unified and so intimate and so one with godliness that this is all I need to tell you. And if you know the Tanta, right, if you know the Ta'amim, Nikudas, Taimim, and Oisius, and if you know the Kabbalah behind it, you know everything. This was the revelation of the original, what we call primordial mass, primordial matter. That this was the hilik, I think that's the right term, the potential for creation, nitbas by shum gilui, and shaloi nitbas by shum gilui, and there was no emergence or revelation of anything formed. And regarding that, Nemar Yashes Choshech Sisra, it says Hashem places darkness as his cloak. The Chomer Hahiyula, in this primordial mass, who nikr b'shem Adam, is called Adam Debriya. Bereishis agilu hu bechachma, Torah shebechsav, v'nikra Adam de Yitzira. And the beginning of his revelation was called chachma of Torah shebechsav, which is called Adam de Yitzira. So basically, you have two in chachma itself. You have the way chachma is attached to its higher dimension, and then you have the way chachma is to a lower dimension, but it's still within the realm of chachma. Okay, it's the difference between clay, a glob of clay, versus now I took the clay and I made a menorah from it.
Wouldn't we call that Bina?
Huh? No. 1 second. Ubracha shniya neged chava. The second bracha, which what? Is not just Yoitera Adam, Baruch Atah Yoitera Adam, is now much more elaborate. Now we understand why, because Chava needs more elaboration. Asher Yotzer Es Adam Betzalmoi, Betzalm Dmus Tavnisoi, Viskin Lo Mimenu Binyan Adayad, Baruch Hashem Yoitera Adam. It's not just, I created man. Now to separate woman from man, and to create individuality, and then eventually a synergy between them, what's going to happen? What happens when I give too much? What happens when I'm too elaborate? What happens when there's revelation? What do we say? Last week's mimer, Alma Disgalia. What's the problem with Alma Disgalia? The exposed, revealed world. The negative forces can come in, and it's now susceptible and vulnerable towards outside interpretation. So what's going to happen? Why do we not want? What's the benefit of keeping Adam and Chava in one entity? There's oneness, but it's not a true oneness. You're only one because you're attached to your source. Can you be one even in a state of detachment? So now I'm going to separate male and female, and I'm going to make this game called romance and fun and marriage and insanity, and I'm going to see if they can be one with each other even as they are separate. Because as long as I keep them connected, it's matbeya katzar. Yes, you are aligned with your source. You are receiving from the Or Ein Sof, but at the end of the day, there is not a impact on creation. And when there's no impact on creation, this is a hypothetical oneness, not an actual oneness. I'm one, literally like the Dardea, right? I'm one because Hashem's revealing himself to me. But can you be one in Eretz Yisrael? Right? The difference between Yeshua and Kalev versus the other Meraglim. They said, by the way, it says that Yeshua and Kalev are from the Almin Dinukva. They are feminine souls. They were men, but they were feminine souls because I think the Kli Yakar says that if the Meraglim were women, they would not speak Lashon Hara about the land. You heard this before? They would not speak Lashon Hara. Why not? Why not? Because we know Alpi Kabbalah, women, the Eretz Yisrael is Malchus, and a woman is Malchus. So she can't speak bad about herself. It's the masculine energy that's still attached to the desert style of Judaism, and the desert style of Judaism is Dardea. It's Yoim leYoim Yabia Oimer, this reservoir of flowing Chachma that is attached to the Or Ein Sof, the Yud Kei Vav Kei, but it has no bearing and no connectivity to the earth, Eretz Yisrael. So therefore it still stays hypothetical and theoretical.
Isn't it just a metaphor of how Hashem just did this for himself, kind of thing? Like Hashem getting to know himself even when he's separated from himself? 100%. So let's see. So now, what did I say before? So Chachma de Bria and Chachma de Yitzira is the difference between the primordial mass versus carving it out and forming it into a certain way. But then you have Ubracha Shniya Neged Chava B'chinas Torah Sheba'al Peh. The second bracha is corresponding to Chava. Who's Chava? Is Torah Sheba'al Peh. V'lachin itoysev ba tevas es asher yatzar es ha'adam. Right? We're adding the word es ha'adam. Again, Alter Rebbe sees every single word, every single letter as fundamental. Asher yatzar es ha'adam etzalmai. Okay? What's this es? How do you even translate es into English? Nothing. What is es? And the. So look what he says. You want to know what the feminine energy brought to creation. Es. Asher yatzar es ha'adam. That who formed and man. The man. Es b'chinas oisius me'alev ataf. When you go out into the revealed world, and when you go out into the state of exposure, and there is a certain sense of negative forces trying to nurse off that, this is because you're talking too much. Now, that's not a bad thing, because how can godliness be revealed to the world if I don't talk? But we have to also validate the fact that once I speak and I bring the secrets of Hashem, of the Or Ein Sof, into the world, that it can become manipulated and sabotaged. So, Asher Yotzer Es Ha'adam Es is Chava. Why? What do we say Chava was? Chava is the emergence. Chava is the revelation, the expression. What are letters? By the way, it's another pasuk that says Asa Boiker. It says the morning emerged, the morning arised. Asa in Hebrew means to arise. Letters are couriers of messages. When we say something, when I'm writing you a letter, but literally the physical language of any language, English, Hebrew, whatever, the letters are couriers. They're carrying messages of the soul. That in my mind, you'll never know unless I told it to you. So Chava also is the miluyim of Yud Kei Vav Kei. What do we say Chava was? She's the fulfillment. She's the expression. She's going to get Yud Kei Vav Kei to 26 to get to 45 to become Adam. So as is the full spectrum of the Hebrew alphabet. From Aleph to Tav, letters are personifying the world, the revealed world. That's literally what letters are. They're the revelation of intellect. And this is called the revelation of Chachmatata, the lower level of wisdom. Again, not because you're stupider, but because you have the skill set to bring this high level of wisdom, what the architect is imagining, into being. You know how to concretize it. As we said above, the primordial mass of human existence is represented by Adam in his state of fury, that he's nothing yet, he's just a goylem. The Alter Rebbe goes through every one of the brachas. What is this? He says first, right? He who created man in his image, in the image of his likeness. Why repeating it? Why are you repeating it? Lost my place, sorry. Ki tzelem lashin tzir. The word tzelem, right, means an image. The gilui. The kafel b'tzalmei b'tzelem. Why are you telling me b'tzalmei b'tzelem? Because it's exactly what Chava does. Only the feminine energy can contain in herself a tzelem within a tzelem. Masculine energy, guys, practically speaking, a woman, the feminine, the female of creation, can become pregnant. I know this is argued in 2025, but let's pretend we're a few years before this debate. Yeah? Betzalmoi, betzelem dmus tavnisoi. That Hashem created Chava in her being, that her womb is able to hold another being in her being. That's called betzalmoi, betzelem. What are you wishing the chassid and kala? That you shouldn't just stay a chassid and kala. You should have children. Now again, children means physical children, but children also means, in Avodas Hashem, your emotions should not stay stagnant to just how you and he was on today. You should grow, you should elaborate. You may fight, you may argue, you may have issues, but at the end of the day, I'm giving you a bracha, that you're able to now become impregnated and give birth to a much greater revelation than what you were today. Pirush gilui acher gilui. And that's only in the realm of Chava. The feminine energy is able to now articulate more and more, become in tune with the emotions of the child, and literally nurse the physicality of the child, that the child literally physically grows because the mother is nursing. The first revelation of the infinite light is this streaming of consciousness, and then there's a lower level of revelation, and this is called the image. How does he say it in English? In the image of his likeness, he fashioned his form, which is now literally the concrete, physical, revealed world. And now the end of the pasuk says, he fashioned his form and prepared for him from his own self an everlasting edifice. What does that mean? That the revealed world, which we said is now susceptible to outer extraneous forces manipulating that light. He doesn't finish the pasuk, but the pasuk is Shiraglaha Yordis Maves. Her feet enter into death. What is death in accordance with Kabbalah? Is dissonance. The idea of ego now that gets in the way because I have to talk to you and I have to articulate myself to you. And now your interpretation is going to be so off from what I originally intended. So Mikol Makim, notwithstanding the pitfalls of a world called self-awareness, that now you're conscientious of something other than God, and even though that is our reality as human beings, mikol makim, nevertheless, einena dafar nifrat chas v'shalim. She is not something separate. Ela v'hitkin lo mimenu be'atzmai, ki gili chachmatato hu gili ha'ara, erin sabaruch hu atzma, shebechachma ila ela lefi sheba nifratu v'nichliku be'bichines riboy amadreges b'derech prat, ma shehayu klulim b'chachma ila be'helam b'derech klal. Hine ha'or sheba hu mitzutzum u'melubish bekama minei tzimtzumim, ve'islab shoshenis kedei lahari v'nisgalus b'chol madrega madrega lefi ma shehi liyos ha'madrega ha'hem nira v'niglim lo yisbatlu b'mitzius. What's the incredible energy of Torah Sheba'al Peh? What is the feminine able to do? She's able to become impregnated and give birth to a totally separate entity, but the entity is going to say what? Mami. That's called Torah Sheba'al Peh. That we're still able to be in Talmud Bavli. What's Bavli? Bavel from the word bilbul. We're in a state of confusion. We're in a state of not understanding what is the source. We're outside of our source. We're outside of our unity. So what do we need though? We need a matbea aruch. We need a sealing. Sealing, S-E-A-I-L-I, not C-I, yeah. We need a seal, right? We need a seal, we need a stamp. And this is the way Chava is able to cause the infinite light of Hashem to now be digested and absorbed in the physical world. And what happens through Hishtalshalus, the light that was Adam Harishon energy, that was in this unified state, no dissonance, no concealment, no individuation. It sounds amazing, but what's the problem? You don't have what I want. You don't have a dira be tachtoinim. You don't have a separate world that sees itself separate from me and yet understand that it's one with me. And what happens that the possibility for separation and for individuation can cause not only a separation but a feeling of disconnection. And in that feeling of disconnection, even worse is an experience of denial. That I deny my source altogether. Aval ikar tzimtzum ha'or, the primary stage of the condensation of the light, you want to know why Hashem did this? In order specifically that the world should be a binyan, the creation of the worlds should not be nullified out of their existence. And this is the meaning of an everlasting edifice. Dahainu, the feminine energy, Chava, is able to bring from a state of concealment to a state of revelation the emergence of Hashem's true desire. And even though, yes, when you articulate yourself, it may be susceptible and vulnerable to the extraneous forces, nevertheless, Hashem says, I specifically want in that state of concealment and in that state of division, a revelation of his kingship. Literally, the binyan, which the binyan means what? The binyan means the home, the feminine, the outside should be adei ad, should still be connected to the Yor Sof. Mamish, literally. But how is Hashem going to do this? That there should be a revelation, a manifestation of the infinite light, in his kingship, in his sovereignty. It has to be in a state of binyan. What is binyan? It's not just the theories of the architect. It's the tangibility of the architect. And the architect can do it by himself. The infinite light of Hashem is literally, as its name implies, that there is no end. And if you have no end, what was also no end? When Adam and Chava were one homogeneous being, there was no end. There was no male and female. There was no separation. And if there's no separation, then there's no true oneness. It was an ethereal oneness, not a practical oneness. And Hashem is in the Or Ein Sof is divested from any emotions, divested from any attributes. As it is explained elsewhere. And even the divine wisdom, that there is some level of condensation and garb and clothing. And what all of this occultation, all of this concealment was all for the sake that there should be some level of divine experience in the mundane. Again, where is this mimicked? In the creation of the child, in the sprouting of the fruit. That what happens when you put the seed into the ground? There's a decomposition, there's a rotting, there's an individuation, there's a loss of its original self. And nevertheless, this is the ultimate fulfillment. Now it has a taste, now it has a smell, now it has a sound. That Hashem desired a dwelling place in the lowest of realms, in a realm that can deny His presence, that has the ability and the free choice to deny His existence. And therefore the ultimate intention in His nobility and sovereignty, to enliven and give life to separate worlds of separation, is not that they should feel themselves as separate, but on the contrary, that there should be what? That we always are connected to the architect. Because in truth, we understand that nature itself is really an expression of higher than nature. Means the translate, and prepared for him from his own self an everlasting edifice. Again, Adam and Chava are euphemisms for humanity, for the Jewish people, and Hashem. So therefore, Hashem is the male and the Jews are the female. And therefore, we are, so to speak, in a state of impregnation, in a state of etherealness, and we have to now come back into the world and reveal Him even in a state of concealment. Okay, I think we'll stop here because we have a lot to do. I thought we would finish, but we'll leave it to the third class. Chaim.